Grand Forks County Commission will come to order. Oh, okay.
Reminder to turn your speakers on.
Once again, the Grand Forks County Commission will come to order. The first matter is the approval of the minutes.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Thank you. We have a second to approve the minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Then the next is the approval of the order of the agenda. Does anyone have any changes? If not, we have a motion.
So moved.
Okay, can we use you for the second, Cynthia?
Absolutely.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next is the approval of the consent agenda. Are there any bills or items that anyone would like pulled before we take care of that?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you very much. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Ross. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next, we have the gentleman from Grace Township want to appear. Mr. Butts and Mr. Groton. You folks here?
Yes.
Okay. Line up to the speaker stand here.
Hi, John Butts of Grace Township. Just wanted to talk about the wind turbines.
Okay.
Currently, I believe our law is that there's no setback for property lines and a quarter mile to occupied structures.
Is that right, Mr. Magnus? That's right. We have Mr. Magnus from planning here. So
Okay, great. In researching, I mean, you could climb in a long rabbit hole for researching stuff on this, but we're way lacking, I think, from what seems like the standards are in. I mean, this is drawn up. When was this drawn up, Mr. Magnuson, that our original setbacks?
Probably 2008-9.
That's what, yeah, I think that's what Peter Welty had said at the Logan Center meeting. And the towers have gotten a lot taller since. And it seems like the more, reasonable would be tying it to the height of the tower. And something, there's been incidents where they've thrown large chunks and it's been 8 times the height of the tower.
Ice, you mean?
No, like large chunks of the blades.
Oh, it breaks off.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And the blade failures is out of 100 towers annually, you're probably going to have 1 blade failure, I found, in researching. So, I mean, it happens fairly often. The state has a, I believe 95 or 90 feet from occupied structure is 45 decibels, but I really don't think trying to write it into law, or into regulations for our county, that the noise would be a very good idea, because you've got a multi-million-dollar tower built only to discover it's too noisy. I mean, you should probably just go with distances instead. If you guys decide that you don't want to change your distances, we'll probably, look at taking back our, doing our own, back to our, doing it ourselves, in Grace Township. Really would rather not. I'd rather just have it done, for the county. I mean, I would say 10 times. I've got quite a bit of research here I'd like to give to anyone that's going to be the one looking at it, and be up to you gentlemen to decide what how far you want. California, there's places that are 2 miles setback from structures. Most places have a, height of the tower, plus, height of the total height of the tower, including the blades, plus 5 for, for property lines. Because it's kind of, you go into you want to put something on your property, which you should be allowed to do, but you can't intrude onto somebody else's, by either, dramatically, lowering their value or, dramatically, not allowing them to use the property because they do. So, do you have any questions for me?
Any questions?
So you don't, do you have county or township zoning?
No, we aren't doing our own zoning right now in our township. That's,
Are you suggesting vary depending on the size of the tower, or should we take the tallest tower and decide what?
I would say, David, that probably, like, most of them are written. I've got like a bunch of stuff, found on the web. As you could imagine, there's people that I'm sure are writing things that could very well be false because they're dead set against it. And then on the other hand, so you just kind of got to wade through it. But looking at it, I think the most reasonable and prudent would be going by the height of the tower and stating your standoff to a building would be, say, 10 times the height of your tower. That way, if they're building a smaller tower, with smaller blades, it's gonna throw less, the ice, like you asked Tom and stuff like that, it's gonna throw less. So therefore, rather than someone saying, putting up a small wind tower for their own house, shouldn't have to have the same standoff as what a, very large one.
Go ahead.
I'm lost. So when you're talking about towers, and when I think of towers, it's when I'm out driving around the country and in the middle of a field or a corner of a field or whatever, there's a tower of some sort. And so is that the kind of tower you're talking about, or are you talking about something else?
Wind turbine tower.
Wind turbines,
Nice.
okay,
Yeah.
all right,
I'm sorry I didn't clarify that.
that's okay. I'm confused a lot.
Oh, no problem at all. Rather have you ask than.
And so my other question, I guess, would be from Mr. Magnuson. Do you have any thoughts on this or comments for us?
Commissioner, not members of the commission. Yeah, our regulations were developed back in the late 2000s. They were based off of the state Public Service Commission. With that said, Public Service Commission is pretty much just a base layer in terms of protecting the citizens and terms like that. They're not a siting power. We have the siting power. So if there's going to be something more restrictive, it would be more appropriate to be with us. We do treat the wind turbines different than the people that just have a wind generation electric on their site. They're completely different. Different setbacks, different chapters of the ordinance. So it's kind of like apples and oranges. I think what we're talking about here are the actual wind farms or turbines. Right now, we measure our setbacks from the structures, nearest structure sidewall in terms of dwellings. It is a 1/4 mile. I would say that I would prefer to stay with a distance versus a height on the tower, because it doesn't matter the height on the tower, the sound issue is going to be the same. So I don't know if you potentially want a little bit shorter tower being closer to the house when it's going to produce the same amount of noise. It might not throw ice as far or have quite as much shadow flicker, but shadow flicker would be another issue, which would be approximately the same regardless of the height. So the distance would probably be more appropriate as far as a regulation. So yeah, if it's the wishes of the commission to take a look at some of these, I'd be more than willing to get the information from Mr. Butts, and I've got some other stuff that I can take a look at too. And probably the most appropriate avenue would be to take it to planning commission, get their thoughts, come up with some recommendations, come back to you to see if we're going in the right direction, and then, you know, kind of take it from there. But what I would recommend is we should put a moratorium, if that's the way you want to go, we should probably put a moratorium on wind farms today, just so that we don't get applications in before we take a look at our rules, because then we would have to process them under the rules that are in place today.
And I think our present setback is a quarter mile, is it?
Correct.
Straight.
I've been talking to some people who think that while a quarter mile is too close, a half mile is a very safe distance. Do you agree with that, or haven't you had enough look at it yet?
I have looked at quite a few different setbacks. The most common, I believe, I mean, there's a lot that have a quarter mile, most common is a half mile. And then as you get beyond a half mile, there gets to be a lot less and less and less. It becomes an issue of what is legally justified in terms of property rights and so forth. We currently have a waiver that a property owner, if he has a wind turbine on his property, he can sign the waiver and say, I acknowledge it's closer than a quarter mile. It gets recorded in the county recorder's office against the property, so there's a record of it, so that future owners are disclosed as far as realtors go and stuff like that. So I think that's probably the most appropriate way to protect the people who want to be protected while not having rules in place just to shut down the project.
Moratorium you're talking about, if you were to get an application in tomorrow, would you have to act on it within 2 weeks or before our next commission meeting, or
I would have
why
to,
would it be wise to have a moratorium?
I would act on that. That's something I would act on today. So I got an application in tomorrow and you guys didn't go forward with the moratorium, it would, the current rules would apply.
Quarter mile, no matter what.
Yep.
Okay.
And if that's the way you guys want to go, we did miss the advertising deadline for planning commission this month, so it would be by a couple, I don't know, a week or so. But so I would do a 60 or 90-day moratorium. If you go 90, we can always cut it short if we get stuff done. I don't know if I want to be put in a bind in terms of trying to push something through or not getting all the information.
That would make sense if we can cut it short. I mean, if get it all together. And we can reduce it to 60.
Yeah, and you can cut it off at any time. If we get it done in
Sure, okay.
40, we can cut it off.
Well, I think Commissioner Ross and I are on the planning committee, and I think the moratorium would be appropriate until we find exactly what we want to do. So does anybody want to make a motion relative to that?
Mr. Chair.
Oh.
I would make a motion that we set it at a 90-day moratorium.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second from Commissioner Ross. Any more discussion? Yes, Commissioner Regan.
How many companies would this affect in Grand Forks County?
Currently, we don't have any wind turbines in Grand
No,
Forks.
but I know of at least 2 companies that are planning to go. They're talking to farmers and people.
I personally have only talked to one. I know there's another one in there, but they're in a township that does their own zoning, so I have not had any contact with them.
Gotcha.
So yeah, currently I've only talked to one.
So it's not half a dozen anyway. A couple of companies that we in contact with. Well,
Do you know if this company that you're aware of, have they been in contact with the Air Force about this? I would assume so.
I gave them their contact information, but I have not.
Well,
I
you
haven't
can't,
heard one or
you
the
can't
other.
follow them out there so that you get the information.
Right. Yeah, they have the contact information for UND Aerospace, Grand Sky, and Air Force Base.
Okay, very good. Okay, any other questions before we vote on the motion? Commissioner Peach, are you good?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, there's a 90-day moratorium in place on wind farm applications. And maybe these gentlemen will give their information. As they said, remember it's from the internet, so. Thank you for coming in. Okay, public health.
Good afternoon, Chairman Falk and members of the commission. I'm Debbie Swanson for Public Health, and I'm going to start our report with National Public Health Week activities. You have before you a folder that includes our proclamation and a little bit of information about what we're planning for National Public Health Week this week. And I just wanted to read a little bit about Public Health Week and what it represents. It brings together communities across the United States to observe National Public Health Week as a time to recognize the contributions of public health and highlight issues that are important to improving the nation's health. This year, National Public Health Week is being celebrated April 4th through the 10th this week. And the theme created by the American Public Health Association is Public Health is Where You Are. By recognizing public health, we celebrate the power of prevention, advocate for healthy and fair policies, share strategies for successful partnerships, and champion the role of strong public health systems. So I wanted to highlight that as part of our Public Health Week, we're doing a lot of internal activities to kind of recharge our batteries and re-energize the public health workforce after the long couple of years that we've had. So we're doing some self-care activities, and then we're doing a few things for the public as well. And we did resurrect an idea that we've done in the past, which is create some awards for people that have been strong champions and heroes for public health. And all of this information will be available on our social media accounts like Facebook and Twitter. So we sought nominations for public health champions and also for heroes. And we had a number of nominations, and we awarded for public health heroes, which is a little bit of a honorary recognition, the following organizations and individuals: Spectra Health for their dedication to providing services and support of best practices throughout the pandemic; Brad and Gal Offit, who are retired residents, but they worked at our vaccination clinics as volunteers, where we vaccinated over 5,000 at the Alaris and 7,000 people at the Alaris Center and 5,000 at our Grand Cities Mall locations, and they worked at both of those. Lindsay Dara of Joyful Tots Childcare, who participated in a farm to childcare program that offered garden space to community members who wouldn't have had an opportunity to grow fresh fruits and vegetables. And My Ally Health, for their dedication to public health services. They provided COVID testing and vaccinations, and then are also an application site for our Women's Way program. Logan Keitzman, who is an RN at our County Correctional Center, was also recognized as a public health hero. And Anthony Saylor, who is a nurse with the Department of Health. And Anthony worked at almost every single one of our vaccination clinics at the Grand Cities Mall. So we're ever grateful to these heroes. And then there were some public health champions that were awarded last night at the City Council meeting. And they included Maura Ferguson, who helped along with some other colleagues develop the Grand Forks Community Support COVID-19 Facebook page that had regular posts about information for the public. Mara's done a number of other things that support public health, like support of the hate crime ordinance, and she works at Fair Plains Housing. Miranda Olson, who we are fortunate enough to have as an intern in our department. Miranda is a full-time fire department employee, and she's also going to school, and she has been working in our department for over a year now, working in our communications team, and she recently initiated a Narcan Leave Behind program with the fire department when they respond to overdoses. An additional champion was Hugo Stanley Marketplace, and they were among the first private businesses to institute a mask requirement for entry into their business. They hosted our vaccination clinic site at their 32nd Avenue South location, and then also are a distribution site for our home testing kits. And additionally, another champion is Mary Barrett. Some of you may be familiar with Mary. She's been a long time employee of ours working at the Grand Forks County Correctional Center. And she was nominated by her colleagues at the Correctional Center, and they had a lot of really nice things to say about her. And then a surprise nomination that I did not know about until last evening was for myself. So those are our public health champions. We're excited to be in a little bit more of a normal phase right now and able to celebrate National Public Health Week. And we thank you all for your support of our department and the many ways that you support our public health initiatives for all of Grand Forks County. And that's all I have to present. I would entertain any questions, and then I will turn it over to my colleague, Michael, for our.
I don't have any, well, I do. Congratulations. I watched it last night on the city council meeting, and it was just so nice to see, you know, the staff, yourself, all of them, and the recognition that you got, and it's well deserved. And so thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Chairman, both the members of the commission, I'm Michael Dulitz with Grand Forks Public Health, here to do a COVID-19 update. Next slide. So overall, COVID-19 activity in Grand Forks County has been very low the past month or so. There still has been cases trickling through the community, but in general, less than 20 per week. We've had days with 0 cases, but we haven't had any weeks with 0 cases, contrary to what what has been said in the media. But overall, very content with with where we're at with COVID-19 cases in Grand Forks County right now. Next slide. Looking at our week in review, the percent positivity is probably one of the most striking pieces of this, with less than 1% or less than even 0.5% positivity. And we are still seeing some vaccine activity in the community. The vaccine activity has picked up significantly as of late, as we added an additional dose, second booster dose for individuals over the age of 50. And so we've been seeing a fair amount of people coming into Grand Forks Public Health, as well as all of our community partners. And there's a number of community partners who do have vaccines available either on an appointment or walk-in basis. Next slide. We have been challenged over the past couple of weeks, though, with our COVID data, as the North Dakota Department of Health has decided, as part of their kind of demobilization efforts from their COVID-19 response, to switch, to change their data reporting and to switch to providing weekly reports to us. So you may have noticed that your emails you don't get daily emails from our data team anymore, and those have switched to weekly. That change in data has significantly curtailed the amount of information that we're able to provide. It is really limited now to the number of cases, the number of specimens that they're seeing, and calculation of percent positivity in each group. So we have no more information anymore on hospitalizations, on deaths in the community, on test types, and things of that nature. So we still have some idea of what's going on with cases in the community, but that information is significantly lower than what we had before. Next slide. One measure that we do still have, though, is looking at wastewater data. So Grand Forks is still providing wastewater data to Ndsu on a daily basis. And this is looking at just within the city of Grand Forks, within the within the wastewater treatment, but this gives us a good idea on what's going on in particular parts of the state. Overall in Grand Forks County, the wastewater right now has been really following our case trend, staying relatively low. During the peak of Omicron, wastewater data was a little bit more lagging than what I'd expect. But overall, it has been a fairly reliable indicator of clinically significant COVID increases happening in communities. Next slide. That said, things are quiet, knock on wood, but we are keeping an eye on what's going on with the BA2 variant of the BA2 subvariant of the Omicron variant of COVID. So what we've kind of been watching happen is the BA2 variant migrate across Europe. So it started mostly, it started kind of in Eastern Europe and Central Europe, and now it's been moving over to Western Europe. And just now, over the past week or so, we've been starting to see cases rise on the Eastern seaboard. The data that we've seen out of Europe has been relatively positive in that the cases generally haven't been lasting too terribly long, but there has been some concerning cases come up here and there about the number of hospitalizations that they've been seeing in areas and stuff like that. So it is still going to be something that we're going to keep an eye on. And it's the impact on us is going to be interesting to see, because we had a big Omicron outbreak, but we didn't necessarily have the number of cases that they were seeing in parts of Europe, and now we're going to have potentially more COVID happening here. So keeping an eye on that. Next slide. So looking at our bottom line, cases are low. We're happy about that. We're in the low risk category right now in the CDC community guidance level, so that doesn't come with a specific masking recommendation for the general public, but people are can still certainly wear masks if they would like to, and certain groups still do have differing recommendations. The weaknesses right now, we're losing access to data, and that is as part of the North Dakota Department of Health's kind of initiative to move to COVID being what they consider an endemic disease, so a disease that's present in the community at any given time. And part of that move to endemic disease is they're also ceasing case investigations. So almost all case investigations except for school-age individuals have also ceased as of yesterday. So they are making significant progress in moving to kind of an endemic response versus a pandemic response at the North Dakota Department of Health. So with that, our access to data is reducing down. Our knowledge of COVID case activity in the community is going to reduce as well. That said, looking at our opportunities, we now have access to another a second booster vaccine for older Americans. So I would encourage you, if you're eligible, to get that additional booster vaccine. And we still have our wastewater surveillance data available in our toolkit. And then finally, looking at our threats, we're keeping an eye on BA2, but other than that, nothing major kind of popping up in the short term. With that, I am open to any questions.
Go ahead. Yeah, that's fine.
With regard to the booster, I think when the first booster, they said wait 6 months or whatever. And so is that the same now? I mean, if it hasn't been 6 months, would I want to take the second booster?
Commissioner Knopf, the recommendation right now is, I believe, 4 months between your
4
last
months?
booster and getting an additional one. So my office is relatively close to the front of the office. So when I can hear our front desk staff, asking that question,
Okay,
people
all right.
who are coming in. So
Thank you.
Any other questions? Very good, thank you.
thank you.
Emergency management.
Kari did get a hold of me and she had indicated she didn't have anything for us.
I see she's out there.
She's out there.
Are you out there, Kari?
I am out here, but I don't have anything for the board. Thank you.
Excellent, good to hear from you. Glad we don't have an emergency problem. Next then, Becky All, Public Safety.
Good afternoon, Chairman Falk and members of the commission. It's great to be here. There's a PowerPoint that he's bringing up. I'm here to talk a little bit today about the results of our annual reports. You have an idea of how 2021 went for us and for your responders out there. Plans moving forward into 2023. And then, of course, we'll follow up with our annual dispatchers proclamation, which is a recognition for the great work that our dispatchers do to keep our responders and citizens safe out there and to help out where it needs to go in an efficient manner.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to find it.
It's okay.
There it is. There we go.
Awesome. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide there, Debbie. Every year, our team leaders and I meet together and review our mission, vision, and goals for the coming year. And from there, we build our budget and drive any capital improvement planning that's needed for the coming year. One of the things, for example, that'll be coming up in 2023 is we need to refresh what we call our buzzer or answering system for 911. There's a chance we may delay this into 2024. We're going to work in tandem with Red River Regional Dispatch since we have a multi-node system with them, and they're planning on building a brand new center. So we'll be working in tandem with Red River Regional on that, but that's one of our larger capital improvement planning areas that we're building into the 23 budget. Many times these needs are driven by technology evolution. And we have to ensure that we provide needed upgrades that are required to keep our systems performing at the levels that they need to. Next slide, please. Calls for service continue to grow, and I feel like a broken record here because I was telling you the same thing last year. Last year, calls for service were over 94,000. In 2020, and in 2021 there were over 106,000 calls for service for the year. So you are seeing an increase. Our sheriff's department had 22,080 calls for service compared to 2019 at 19,965. So the calls for county, the sheriff's office does account for 21% of the calls that we have in PSAP, the calls for service. Next slide, please. And this just kind of shows you a depiction of the calls and a comparison from the last 4 years of those calls for service. Next slide, please. This shows our calls for service per hour overall. These are the kinds of things that we look at when we look at staffing. So we staff where our highest call volumes are appropriately. Next slide, please. We processed for phone calls over 101,000 calls. And this again, where we've seen a slight reduction in phone traffic because we use CAD, which was an upgrade that we did in 2017. This is computer-aided dispatch. So we're talking to our responders at the same time as we're talking physically to our clients on the phone. So we continue to find ways to improve efficiency. Next slide, please. What might be surprising to many is that our highest call volume is during the day. So next slide, please. We also have a call answering performance standard, and we use a standard that requires 90% of our 911 calls to be answered within 10 seconds. And this is a NINA standard. And historically, our PSAP has exceeded this goal every year, and we continue to meet this performance standard. Next slide, please. Our average call duration is also something that we need to look at when we start looking at staffing. So not only is our call volume and answer time an important part of staffing and service, the average call duration per phone call also plays a very important part And as seen on the depiction on the slide, the pattern in this area is pretty consistent with the previous year. However, the amount of time on the phone call has increased. This can be due to several factors, including how our roles are now split out, as well as the type of calls that are received. And we have a dedicated call taker, and this allows for that individual to focus on the person. And then we have dispatchers that are taking care of the radio end of things. So we split duties as we become busier. Next slide, please. This talks a little bit more about splitting that call taker and dispatcher duties. The statewide interoperable radio network has been a very good success story. I don't know what you're hearing from responders out there, but they're very happy. All of our city responders have migrated in 2021. Our sheriff's office migrated to the new system in November. Manville and Thompson Fire Department have since migrated, and Amarillo is coming on in the next couple of weeks here. Inkster Fire Department will be coming on shortly. We just programmed their radios up. So we're getting those rural fire departments on. Our rural police departments just migrated. Was it this week, Shannon? I think today. Yeah, today. So very excellent system. It's been a success story. And I just want to really reiterate that that's been a very good project. It's been a vast improvement. And I think, you know, any kind of resources that we put into that project has been well worth it. Next slide. So I want to recognize Shannon Leahy. She's our PSAP manager. She's put in a lot of work putting together all of these stats for you, as well as for all of us. We've been looking at a staffing analysis utilizing a national standardized tool. We did share the results with our board. Our board met 2 weeks ago. We use a formula with 12-hour shifts, and that analysis really indicates that we should have 29 full-time staff. We currently have 20 authorized. We're actually down to 15. We do have 5 part-time folks. So as you can tell, we are short-staffed. We do need to plan for additional staff, and that's something that we'll be planning for. We do realize that we'll not get to that level of 29 anytime soon, but it's something that we need to strive towards over the next few years because we want to retain the staff that we have as well. And it's been a tough go. Next slide. So we continue to work on staffing challenges, which I just talked about. We are currently hiring. We've got a Facebook page out now, so that's been new within the last couple of weeks. We are using city HR, and really I should share this with our county as well. As soon as the individuals apply, we've made some changes in the process where we can send them a test where it's a skills test. So before they even get an interview, they have to meet certain qualifications. So we're going to work our hardest in that regard so that we can get some more folks on board. Next slide, please. I want to talk a little bit about budget performance, and that was included in the annual report that you didn't see. Hopefully, you had a chance to look at it last week. Despite challenges, we maintained our revenues and expenditures. And again, a reminder that we have 2 accounts that we manage. One is the operational or the joint powers agreement account. This is the one that is that joint account between the county, UMD, and the city. And primarily it pays for staff for the most part. The second account is the 911 fee account, which is operational and it pays for equipment and some staffing. In 2023 for the county, based upon your calls for service over the last 5 years, which we average out, the cost share will go to 21.17%. This is up from 20.17, so it's up 1% from last year. And really looking at the numbers and how things are trending, I think it's gonna level out now. Your percentage has been going up over the last several years, as you know. But the calls for service for the sheriff's office have increased that much. But it seems to be kind of leveling out. So not to say theirs won't increase, but everybody else is kind of increasing. So it's kind of a shift. So I would say it's going to stay pretty close to that 21.17. Next slide, please. In closing, we're well on our way to meeting goals and objectives for 2022, and we're ready to take on 2023. And with that, I'd like to also stand ready for any questions you may have. And just a reminder that we would appreciate the proclamation sign for a recognition for our dispatchers for the solid work that they do.
Commissioner Knopf.
I'm sorry, I missed it. And thank you for the report. It's great. You said it's a 12-hour shift and it should be at 29, and I missed how many you have now.
We have 20 that we're authorized for, and we're actually short 5. So
Yeah.
it's been rough.
So, I mean, that's gonna be a real high stress job for staff that are, so how do you deal with that? When you're short staffed?
We have part-time staff that are actually former dispatchers that come back and fill in shifts. And so that's how we've handled it. We also have a fair amount of overtime. Most of the time when we can't have overtime, we send it out. It's through a text message. We have a group texting message technology, and they can volunteer. So we look for a volunteer first before we have to tell them. We're also going to minimum staffings at times when we'd really rather not. But if we do have an event where we know that we're going to be busy, we just make sure that we have more on to be able to handle the call load when it comes in. But yeah, it's been quite a year.
I just worry, I mean, like with you folks and public health and whatnot, what your staffs have had to go through, and yours
Yeah.
isn't all COVID related, not that public health is all COVID related either, but just, recognizing that stressful jobs and staffing issues is a real concern. And then my other question is, and I don't know if you have the answer for that, but you said you're up 1%
Yes.
from last year. Do you have a dollar value on that roughly?
I can't recall off the top of my head. I've just started this.
Okay, all right.
And so,
Just curious, it doesn't matter.
well, the board too did direct me to maybe we'll use to offset some of those costs. We'll use some of our 911 fees because we have some cash carryover in there. And we have been saving dollars for Siren through the 911 fee account, that infrastructure account. A lot of those costs, those infrastructure costs for Siren or the statewide interoperable radio network, were paid for by the state through that state partnership. And so that's been a cost savings. And then we will have some cost savings when we power down some of our towers because we pay tower fees currently on our old VHF system. So we're looking at, for the next couple of years, doing some trying to bring those cost shares down so we can still bring people on. And there's still going to be an increase because that 1%, but we'll try and keep it so that it's not too tough to take.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll work with Debbie and Cindy, of course.
The numbers are what they are, and
Yeah.
we want to be there no matter what the numbers are. So did you get ARPA money?
Well, no, but we did have, well, no, I'll take that back. We did get some money for consoles. Remember we put a backup dispatch center in place down in the EOC? And the consoles that we purchased, 2 additional ones, which totaled $130,000. We did get that through funding through the city, and I believe it was ARPA funds.
They are nice.
Yeah,
Very
it's been a wonderful improvement. We have a good backup system, and it's also been a good partnership and improvement with the emergency management. So we do thank Kari and her team for sharing their space with us too, so.
It's amazing, all that machinery that's sitting there, and I don't know how you have enough eyes at one time to look at all of that, plus talk on the phone and
It's a
comprehend,
skill.
try to comprehend what somebody's saying. And it would be, I know years ago, we did a tour, or I did a tour of PSAP.
Come back.
And well, I'd love to because, you know, you're just on a tour, but I mean, to see them in action would be, I mean, it's good to see.
It's
So
really
that people
remarkable.
understand.
Yeah.
But it's amazing what you do and very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Ringen?
You listed some agencies that are signing on or have signed on. Are there any in the county that aren't signed on yet that should be, or you're just kind of working through from one area to the next? How's it going as far as total?
Well, what we're doing, Commissioner and the members of the commission is, we're working with our responders as they have dollars available to purchase the radio. And then the other challenge that we're having is supply chain issues. So we have a number of responders that have ordered radios and they still haven't received them yet. So things, we just keep marching forward. It's coming along. Larimore should be coming on fairly soon too. So we got Larimore and Northwood kind of waiting in the lanes, but some of it is just getting those radios.
Mr. Ross?
Becky, I think you've announced that you're gonna retire. And as the past sheriff and county commissioner, I want to thank you for what you've done. It's been outstanding, what you've done to that communication system, first rate. So, thank you.
Thank you. I very much appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. I mean, it's been really exciting. So thank you. I've enjoyed every minute of it, almost every minute.
Time for a motion on the proclamation?
One question, when are you leaving us?
Well, officially July 1.
Okay, we have plenty of time. So.
Yeah.
Good. Could always be considerable.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Commissioner Reagan.
I move that we approve the proclamation that's listed in our materials, and I assume it's for the chair's signature. I don't see the end of it.
Yeah, it is. I see it there. So thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Ross. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thanks, yeah.
Thank you for your presentation and thank you, Ms. LaHaye, for the statistics.
She's a rock star. Thank you.
Okay, next we have the county engineer. Mr. West, how are you?
Good, Chairman Falk. Thank you. Members of the board, quick tidbit, if that Northwood Bridge, they're working on it, it's going good. I was out there today again, and they'll finish up driving the piling probably tomorrow, so if you want to go check that out, that's pretty cool, huge crane thing, and they'll bring your earplugs, it's really loud. Next week, Wednesday, they plan on having the deck brought in, so that's pretty fab, so they pick it up off trailers and swing it over the crane and set it in place, and it'll start looking like something out there, so.
What day is that? Do you know what day that's gonna be?
I believe Wednesday. Is what they told me
Road
today.
trip, huh?
I like seeing that.
Do you have an expected completion date on that project?
Yeah,
Roughly.
it's the end of April,
Oh, wow.
I'll say April 22nd.
Oh, wow.
The road open, it won't be 100% done, there'll be some miscellaneous stuff because they're doing it early.
Yeah.
Some of the final dirt work and seeding and things like that. Some of the guardrail won't quite be totally done, but the road will be open. So, yeah, going as planned, which is good. Two things for consideration today. One is our DRP project, which is our grant for the bridge south on County 5, south of Manville. Agreement with the DOT and Federal Highway. This is the cost participation construction maintenance agreement. This is when I looked through it, it's a standard agreement that we
would agree to on any federal aid project. The only unique thing that would be different pertaining to this one is, well, they're paying 100% of eligible items, which is most anything except right away purchase and or acquisition and utility relocation, which we're expecting to cover that portion ourselves anyway. 100% of up to 1.25 million. And we have till December 2024 to bid the project. We have till December 2026 to spend all the funds. So we have some time yet, but here's the agreement. The other part is they are asking for, again, our certification, a local match, which I guess we don't have this budgeted yet, so I don't know exactly which account, but if it would be okay, Ms. Nelson, if what your opinion might be here, but what if we just put in there 2140 and or 2150? Either account would be okay, and that's what's going to come out of, and we can figure that out for budget next year. But I would ask for chairs, auditors, and state's attorney's signature. And I believe Ms. Wamstead has reviewed it and is okay with that. Is that still correct?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. West said that electronic signature.
It is.
Yeah.
And I believe our chairman already signed it, but
Prematurely, but it'll be.
it's okay. We got it. We got you covered.
We like to be on top of things here.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
Okay. We need a motion on that? We do.
Please.
I'd make that motion
Okay, motion by,
to approve the BRP
and
agreement.
I heard Cynthia seconded, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? That's the signature.
That's with the signatures.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. My next item is, board remembers back February 15th, Otter Tail Power was before us and was requesting to buy a parcel of land near the town of McCanna, County Road 11, to extend the substation for the recent additions to the primarily the fertilizer elevator out there. And they're looking to buy some land. They have submitted a proposed plat to us. I have reviewed it. I find the plat meets all the requirements we had agreed upon that day. And they are offering us $10,000 for the 2.69 acres. There was a little back and forth on that, and I guess between myself and Ms. Wamstead, we thought that was a fair price, and I'd like to bring that number before the board, before all the paperwork is put together. If we could agree that that price is okay, then they would finish putting the deed and other paperwork together. So that'd be a good thing to do, and before they put the paperwork together, and then we say, oh, that's not a good number, go back and redo it. So that is my request.
Do we have a motion? Someone is in favor of selling the 2.69 acres to Otter Tail Power for the amount of $10,000 near McCanna.
I'll make that motion, but
Thank you.
I'd like to ask a question when we have a second. But we can do it after the second.
Do you have a second?
Sure, yes.
Second by Commissioner Engen, and now we have time for.
Okay, so just out of curiosity, and I don't have a problem with the $10,000 or whatever, but I just would like to know in my own head, how did you arrive at that $10,000 for the properties?
It's
that
a-
piece?
It's a close price per acre for what land is going for in the area.
Okay, all right,
It's in the range.
okay. I'm fine with that.
Probably be worth a little more if it was farmland, but it's kind of a corner that nobody really can use, so.
Right, yeah, it's,
Other than these guys, which is fortunate. Okay. Any other questions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
that's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
You just got it.
Sheriff's Department is next.
Good afternoon, Chairman Falk, members of the commission. First, this is kind of impromptu, but with PSAP being here, I can help but mention, thank you to this commission for authorizing us to purchase radios under capital improvement. As you recall, early on in the process, we looked at buying them over a 3-year time frame, and not knowing what the refunds were going to be at that time. We planned for 3 years because it was a substantial amount of money. I believe it was over $600,000. And with the rebates that we got on the purchase of the radios and approval of the commission, we obtained our radios in 1.5 years, which has now afforded us to be on the system. We would have been buying our last radios this year. And as you heard, there's other agencies that are purchasing way less and they can't get them. So thank you for doing that. And thanks again to Becky for all she's done with PSAP. It's been very easy to work with in my last 3 years. So it's been great. Moving on to what I'm here to talk about today is, as you're all aware, the sheriff's office is looking at potential lease agreements for their fleet vehicles through Enterprise. Josh, the regional manager from Enterprise, is here today out of Fargo. If there's any questions for him, but what I wanted to do was just provide an update as far as what the sheriff's office has been doing since the commission's requests for information at the last meeting. So I've been personally able to reach out to several agencies that are using them and get some information. Those agencies include the city of New Hope, Minnesota. I personally spoke with Chief Tim Hoyt, and he was just an abundance of information. He stated that their agency, their city, had an independent evaluation conducted by ABDO, ABDO LLP. It's a firm of private certified CPAs. And for the chief and the LLP through ABDO, Julie McMackins, they stated that the calculations were accurately provided by Enterprise for their projections. Their fleet projection net savings on vehicles only, not equipment, was $345,000 plus in 2 years. Another note on that, their fleet size is, I believe, about 15 units smaller than the sheriff's office. And currently they're very happy with Enterprise. They are holding up their part of the agreement that they signed. The city of Plymouth, I spoke with the captain that's in charge of the fleet there. I apologize, I did not catch his name. But I also spent a lot of time speaking with their city manager, Dave McAllister. And Dave was kind of one of the front runners on this whole project. The city of Plymouth did not have a private firm investigate the numbers, but they did have their personal financial advisor evaluate the numbers that were provided by Enterprise. That was for one of their city council members, who was a numbers guy. And they did a very thorough comparison of the projection versus what Enterprise had provided them. They vetted their entire analysis through the city of Champlin that was also with Enterprise prior to Plymouth going on board. One example that they cited was the city was prepared to sell 5 vehicles and they were informed that they would get about $1,000 each. That's what they budgeted for. Enterprise was able to take those vehicles and receive $5,200 each average for those vehicles. And they've seen significant savings in maintenance costs due to having a newer fleet, which has allowed them to bring down those budget line items. And they did state that one thing that they've noticed is the leasing does create a challenge on their annual financial reports. The way that it's done, that you've seen in the analysis, is some vehicles are being utilized for 3 to 4 years. Some are being utilized 2 to 3 years. So there's years that you're going to be replacing several vehicles more than other years. For example, one year you might spend $150,000 on vehicles, the next year $300,000. Capitalize on the sales of those vehicles at the mileage. They also did state that the analysis has resulted in moving forward with Enterprise on their leasing program, and so far so good in the city of Plymouth. The most in-depth conversation I had was with the Isanti County Sheriff, Sheriff Chris Cock, and they've been in a lease agreement with Enterprise since 2014. They have 38 vehicles in their sheriff's office, which is fairly comparable to ours at 43. He stated that the first thing he stated is, I'll tell you anything you want to know, but I'll tell you right off the bat that I strongly encourage you going through Enterprise for your fleet management. He stated that they have lost money one time on one vehicle in 8 years. It was a Dodge Charger. Out of all of the vehicles that Enterprise has sold, it was only one vehicle they've ever lost money, and all of the other vehicles they've reached either the money that they expected or anticipated or more, and usually it was more than they expected. Since they have gone with Enterprise, the entire county of Isanti has contracted all of their, I shouldn't say contracted, they've signed lease agreements for their entire fleet for the whole county of Isanti, minus their dual axle dump trucks. Every other vehicle is leased through Enterprise in that county. He said their numerical savings are all there. Everything that they've projected from Enterprise has been on target. He said the most value and the highest return that he's seen outside of the numerical savings that you see in your budget is the amount of time saved and salaries saved by employees. He said it's been absolutely invaluable not having to have your employees run around and check if the car's due for an oil change, or if there's parts that need to be ordered or it's ran here or there. He said that side of it has been invaluable, and you can't put a price tag on it. He said it's been priceless, and that comes along with the Enterprise fleet management that they offer, where they say, hey, this car needs to get new brakes on it, otherwise you're going to need brakes and rotors along that line. I also spent quite a bit of time speaking with Julie McMackins, and she is the certified public accountant through Abdo. And she did verify with me that Abdo did several evaluations, including evaluations for Enterprise proposals for contracts with the cities of Crystal and New Hope, two that I just provided you information on. Actually, I did not provide you information on Crystal. I take that back. She verified that Abdo did look at the Enterprise projections, and they compared them to their individual assessments through their private organization. She stated that their 3-year, 5-year, and 15-year evaluations that they conducted all showed cost savings, and that they agreed with Enterprise's evaluations that were provided to the city or county police departments or sheriff's offices. On top of speaking with those people, Chief Deputy Stromberg is currently working with Enterprise, with State's Attorney Walmstead, with NDRF on the lease agreements that were provided. Thankfully, Enterprise has been very willing to work on those. As you're all aware, a lot of agreements that are initially proposed are cookie cutter, and so far so good. They don't see any problems with any potential wording conflicts that State's Attorney Walmstead has pointed out. And they say that they don't see any reason for a major setback to engage in a potential lease agreement that would fall within the timeline that the sheriff's office has to move forward to make sure that we're not missing out on vehicles going into the future. Advantages we continue to see at the sheriff's office with potential for lease agreement, talking with other agencies and working with Enterprise. There's several reasons, but mainly we're looking at improving our efficiency and reducing the operational expenses for maintenance and downtime on patrol vehicles. We also want to emphasize that this would be increasing the safety of providing safe and reliable vehicles for sheriff's office deputies to respond to county emergencies and citizens' requests, which are up to 22,000 in 2021. So they continue to request the demand for law enforcement out in the county to respond safely. And lastly, the substantial savings of county tax dollars, with the current estimation cost savings nearly around $1 million with Enterprise's initial proposal of 10 years. On top of that, I know that there were some questions about leasing, and there was some confusion by some commissioners regarding why would we lease? How is that more cost effective? Some things were hard to understand. So the city of New Hope gracefully provided me with some information that they presented. And part of that was an open lease is what we're engaging in, or hoping to engage in with Enterprise. An open lease has several advantages, meaning number one, it's customized. Like you've heard, they're willing to work on us with the contract. There's not a mileage restriction on the vehicle. You're not restricted to how many miles you can drive or be penalized for that. There's no abnormal wear and tear charges for when you go to sell the vehicle. The term is flexible, like Josh has stated with us, and specifically Chief Deputy Stromberg, if they see that a Ford F-150 we're hoping to obtain this year, police vehicle, if that is going to bring in more money in 3 years versus 4 years due to the mileage, they're willing to sell that and turn that around, and we're not penalized for selling it early. And we'll see a higher return in value on that, and typically, you'll see your lease on the vehicle that you're obtaining in return, that lease amount go down on a monthly lease amount. The other part is there's no prepayment penalties or no termination penalties versus closed lease, which is likely what private citizens are more familiar with. Where you lease a vehicle, you're not allowed to customize it. What you see is what you get. You're restricted on how many mileages, how much mileage you can put on the vehicle. You're penalized for wear and tear on the vehicle, whether it's tires, brakes, etc. Scratches, dings, dents. You cannot return the vehicle until your term is up to the dealer, no matter what's wrong with it. And it's more of a long-term rental. So that's just a few notes that I had on the rental side of it. Again, we are working on some other aspects that you were hoping to see from Enterprise regarding different numbers. And the proposal right now is for, I believe it's written for 19 vehicles. Like I said, some of that will be modified. 2022 numbers will change to 2023. Right now, besides this information, I guess I'm not looking for any motions or anything like that. What I'm looking for is if the commission has any further questions, or if there's anything else that we can work on clarifying prior to the next commission meeting. If there's anything else that you would like us to try to obtain or establish prior to the commission looking to make a vote on this. Overall, what I would hope for at the end of the day is that the sheriff's office is provided an opportunity to stay within their budget, whether it's 16 vehicles, 18 vehicles, or worst case scenario, we just continue to buy vehicles straight out, and we're at that 5 for the year. So with that, Josh is here, like I said, and I'm here if there's any questions from the commission.
Commissioner,
I was the one you were talking about that was very confusing.
You were one of them.
Yes.
One of them. Yes.
Oh, right into it. So, okay, so that was.
you weren't the only one, Commissioner. No.
Okay, so that was a couple weeks ago, and so you're talking 19 vehicles, and that would be right out of the chute. I mean, that.
We would actually, sorry, Commissioner Knopf, we would actually be looking near to 16 vehicles. The initial analysis had 19, but that took into account some vehicles that are under federal grant money that we're not allowed to trade off or sell. So we'd be looking around.
And so then the vehicles that we have now, would they buy those from us or offset
Correct.
what we owe them?
Yep, so they would, if we were able to
Or
move
several.
forward with 16 vehicles, we would have Enterprise sell those vehicles, and they would take however much we sold those vehicles. Well, there's 2 options. The best option in my mind is they would sell those vehicles, and then they would in turn put that money against our lease and deduct our lease payment. The other option is we could have them sell the vehicles and then write us a check, and then obviously our monthly lease amount would be a little bit higher.
Okay, and then what kind of dollar amount are we talking about? I mean, if we budget for 5 vehicles normally in your department, and now we're gonna budget for 16,
The numbers that Enterprise.
but not purchase, yes, but what
Right.
kind of dollars are we
Right.
talking about?
So Commissioner Knopf, members of the commission, the numbers that were provided by Enterprise were to stay within our budget. So we would either get 5 vehicles, which, to be honest with you, price of vehicles and equipment going in them is going to increase 5 to 10%. The vehicles will be swapping out are anywhere between 5 to 7 years old. The 5 vehicles we're hoping to replace next year, if not 19. So we'll have to increase all of our budget lines 5 to 10% to obtain those vehicles. Enterprise is proposing, this was for our 2022 numbers, with the budget that we have right now to buy and outfit 5 vehicles, they can buy and outfit 19 vehicles with that same dollar. So we wouldn't be looking to increase our budget for 19 vehicles with the 2022 proposal. It's either 5 bought straight out or 19 off of a lease. And with that projection, then in turn, annually, we would sign lease agreements on vehicles, no contract, lease agreement per vehicle. over a 10-year time frame, they're projecting $1 million savings approximately on our vehicle budget.
Mr. Ingen had his hand up.
Yeah, one of the things that I was initially concerned about when I first met with you guys was when we buy vehicles, we then sell them and take the money. When we do it and they sell them, they'll probably get more for us and apply it to our payment. So we are not losing the equity we build up in vehicles. We're just getting newer vehicles more often, which are gonna be top of the line, safety wise and everything else. So I
Correct.
think that goes a long way to explaining how the vehicles are handled when you get rid of them and get new ones.
Yeah, correct. Commissioner Reagan, for example, the city of Champlin had been selling their vehicles at whatever auction. They would obtain approximately $1,000 each. Enterprise took them and they got $5,200 average for those 5 vehicles. Enterprise is planning on, they would target, they see that there's a demand for Impalas in Texas. They'd reach out, and I'm speaking for Josh, I'm sure he'll nod his head behind me, but they'll reach out to dealerships down there. We have X amount of Impalas, these are the mileage. Tell me what you'll pay, and it's a competitive bidding versus just taking them to an auction where everybody's hoping to get a deal.
You know, it seems like, at least where we own all these vehicles to start with, early on, we're gonna be selling our own vehicles. Towards the end of this, we don't have any vehicles with equity in it that we're selling, correct? Because they're all lease vehicles.
So I guess I would have Josh come up here unless you want me to speak quickly on it, but whatever they sell the vehicle for versus what they estimated in the lease, we would get credit back for.
Thank you, Sheriff. That is correct. So while Enterprise owns the vehicle, the Sheriff's Department is leasing it. When we sell that leased vehicle, all that equity remains within the department. So Sheriff Schneider is correct. While the vehicle is at the end of the term, we'll recommend reselling it. Whatever equity is made on that will then be can be issued in a check payment to the county, or it can be rolled forward into its replacement vehicle, or maybe you decide to take check on some sales and roll the equity forward in the other sales. So however the county best thinks that they want to do with it.
For selling used vehicles right now, it's a great thing, but down the road, it may not be quite so great. So is that gonna affect the outcome of this?
I don't see it affecting the outcome. I mean, vehicles is very important for transportation purposes. There's always going to be a demand for used vehicles. As the industry changes, Enterprise is one of the first ones to find out about it. We have close ties with all major manufacturers across the globe. So as we see enhancements in electrical vehicles or wherever the case may be, we're always some of the first early partners to know any shifts or changes in the auto market. Currently, the resale market is outperforming what we would have expected a year ago. Manufacturers are ramping up production as much as they can, but shortage of material, shortage of workers, and so due to inflation, these vehicles are worth much more still today than what we would expect. So we're learning more each quarter. We're following it very closely, and we share this information with all of our partners.
Any other questions? Yes.
Still. So, and it's got nothing to do with Enterprise, okay, because you guys are, that's not my concern. But my concern is that, okay, so we're in this 3 years, we got 5, 10, 15 new cars or something? No, we've got how many?
Hopefully you're on
Well, if I have all the cars.
No, not
Close.
6 years is where
Okay.
our target.
But let's just say, all right, 3, 4 years down the road, we decide this isn't the right deal for us, or there's something there that we don't, just isn't right. What position does that leave us in? No cars, of our own.
Right, so that's something that I've evaluated too over the several months of not returning Josh's emails or phone calls. And because I had that same concern. But here's a perspective. So this year we're looking at, we're authorized to purchase 5 vehicles this year for the sheriff's office, which isn't a good turnover for us because we're looking at turning cars over every 6 years to 7 years. And that's not even including administrative vehicles. That's why we have 100,000+ miles on most you know, investigators' cars, fleet vehicles, et cetera. But, so worst case scenario, enterprise obtains, commission says, sure, let's give it a shot here. Let's engage in a lease agreement for 1 year with enterprise. Enterprise swaps out 16 vehicles of ours. So we now have in the sheriff's office 16 brand new vehicles instead of 5. We get to the end of the year, and it's like, we don't know if this was quite the best deal. We can either continue to pay off those leases, buy some of them out, but either way, we wouldn't have obtained 16 new vehicles in the sheriff's office for over 3 more years. We are leaps and bounds ahead. Right now, we're just trying to keep our heads above water and keep patrol happy. I mean, we have multiple vehicles on patrol that are over 100,000 miles, and I'll be the first to tell you, for Commissioner Rosswell, that's not very safe. Just due to the maintenance and constant repairs that you're doing to these vehicles. So even if it's the worst thing in 3 years, our fleet is still gonna be miles and miles ahead of where it would have been if we continued to do the same process that we're doing now. My other proposal would be to the commission is that, you know, if this is something we don't feel is gonna work out, eventually I'm gonna have to start requesting, you know, we're gonna have to get to 7 or 8 vehicles a year to replace. Right now, we're at 4 marked cars and 1 administrative vehicle, you know, and that's a couple $100,000. Looking at close to doubling that, and that's not gonna get cheaper. So if we are, there's buyout options. It's not like we'd be swimming with our heads underwater. And, you know, with that concern, that's why I've talked to a lot of these other agencies. I mean, since 2014, the sheriff's office has been with it. Their commission has been so happy with it that the entire county has swapped over their vehicles. I guess I haven't found a reference, and they're not even suggested from enterprise. This is chiefs telling me to call sheriffs and other chiefs that has said, yeah, we're looking at getting the heck out of here. You know, they've absolutely, and I've told Josh already, they've told me things that they wouldn't do. I mean, they suggest pass-through maintenance on all your vehicles. Why? Well, because they didn't feel like they're getting a return on maintenance on marked. That's great information. That doesn't mean enterprise wants to drop the lease agreement on them. The other plus is their individual lease agreements. We're not signing a contract stating Grand Forks County will purchase all their vehicles here on out through enterprise. It's this vehicle, X amount of years, going back to the lease. They figure we're gonna sell this Ford F-150 in 3 years and we should get 25,000 for it. We paid 39,000. You're only paying $14,000 towards that lease because you're only paying for what you used on the vehicle. That's where you get a little bit of return as well. So yeah, 3 years down the road, if we think it's not the right thing, I would not be hitting the panic button. Just talking with both Josh's at Enterprise and looking at what the cost would be on our budget, because we're looking to maintain where we're at. So every year there's gonna be ups and downs. It'll balance out after. I know Debbie's done some analysis. She might have more accurate numbers than I do off the top of my head, but eventually it'll balance out the budget.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I did look at the spreadsheet the enterprise gave us, and the numbers are accurate as far as our budget, what we had, and I cannot give you what our maintenance bill will be. We have these newer vehicles, but if we assume what they say is correct, and they have access to 20 million vehicles, so I think they have some idea of what happens when you have new vehicles compared to older vehicles and your maintenance costs. I took out the fuel out of the equation altogether, and I think they suggested that as well, to take the fuel out, because I don't know what savings that is on the fuel. And if you take that out, our savings over the period of time is $816,000. We won't see an increase in our budget for 7 years from what it is now. And we'll have much better vehicles.
Well, that's good information to have.
Any other comments, questions?
When would we be required to act on this if you're gonna get the vehicles you need the way you need them and so on?
Right, so Commissioner and members of the board, right now we're still trying to pursue Chevy Tahoes due to fuel, capacity, capabilities for county, whatever. That order window is projected to open on May 5th. That's why I wanted to come to this meeting and provide you information and see what other information you wanted for follow-up from me prior to the next commission meeting. There's 2 meetings prior to the May 5th bid opening. Either way, the sheriff's office is gonna be requesting some sort of action from the commission, whether it's, we'll authorize you to work through enterprise as long as you stay within the projected budget. If not, we're gonna come forward and ask for a 5 to 10% increase on several budget lines so we can submit our bids or put in our vehicles to get ordered through Chevy.
So.
Yeah.
Commissioner Falk, Andy, when are you, is there still some research that you need to do with the DERF on the insurance before we make any kind of motions or anything?
Yeah, Commissioner Ross, I believe Haley's been in contact with him directly, and she might be able to comment on that.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I have visited with NDERF about some questions in relation to the contracts proposed by Enterprise. They've provided some responses that are helpful to our amendments to those contracts. I believe Mr. Stromberg has been in contact with Enterprise and let them know the amendments that we would need to those contracts.
So there still is some amendments that need to be done to the contract before the board can take action.
That is correct. It's my understanding from speaking with Mr. Stromberg that Enterprise is open to those amendments, but it needs to be brought up the flagpole within their organization.
And I don't want to speak for Josh again, I can't, but he's sitting right here, that, we let him know, and when I referenced the timeline, May 3rd commission meeting is the timeline that I'm shooting for. And he assured us that that should be attainable to work through the agreement word changes to make it suitable for us as a county to engage in.
Because once they open up that line for the Tahoes, it could close real quick, depending on demand. So.
Yeah, and on that note, it's been referenced, what's their capability? The chief in New Hope said that they've obtained 7 vehicles through Enterprise this year. And I was talking to him about how do you get them outfitted on the road, that many vehicles? And he said, thanks to Enterprise's buying power, we're the only agency right now in the area that actually has vehicles. So there's no wait line. They should have all of their vehicles, within a month and a half, a week each is what he figured timeline. So they've seen benefits on that end.
So when we have this exchange. We get our new vehicles, but they have to quit. We still get to keep our old ones?
Our old vehicles?
Yeah.
No.
Well.
I mean, we could retain whatever vehicles.
Until they switch over.
Correct.
I don't
Correct.
wanna
Yep.
be.
That's what we're currently do. Actually, part of it.
You're just supposed to know what I'm thinking.
Sorry, I'll get better at it. I apologize. But actually Enterprise, and this was actually vetted through, I can't remember if it was the chief or the sheriff, but it was through the chief because they have 7 homes ready to get upfitted. He verified with Enterprise because there's a delay in some of the equipment to go with them. That even though Enterprise has purchased the vehicles for the city of New Hope and they're sitting at the upfitter, the city will not pay a dime until they have that vehicle in their hands ready to deploy. So they're not charging them as soon as the vehicle's bought and it's at the upfitter, here's your payment. They don't charge, right? There's no charge until that vehicle is physically in our custody and it's operable. So what we currently do, Commissioner Falk. Chairman Falk, Commissioner Knopf. Sorry, getting confused. I've been talking way too long. But what we currently do with our vehicles is when we obtain our new vehicles, we try to send down 2 at a time Cause then we are down 2 patrol vehicles while they're getting outfitted, cause they take parts out, certain parts that we can reuse, new parts are put in. So it's a process.
And then my only other question then is that for the commissioners, is this something that we want to look at for our whole fleet for Grand Forks County?
I think it's something we should look at.
And do we look at that now, or do we look at that down the road? I mean, should we be telling Enterprise that that's a consideration and give us numbers? I mean, if we're gonna save money, why would we want?
I think you need to look at what the county currently has and address it that way, because you know, everybody has different kinds of vehicles. So I think we see how this works with the sheriff's department. And then I think we should look at county highway. I don't know, social services, they're
That's
state now, right?
employees, or
Yeah.
state vehicles.
Yeah,
And Nick, I think, has got all that he needs. Kari's got.
but you got the
hers.
corners.
The corner,
two
yeah, but
Dodges.
she just got 2 new, right?
And then, who's that?
Dr. Sens, didn't she just get a,
Yeah, she got the 2 Dodges.
and then we have the
The
buildings
health
and
department's
grounds.
gonna be getting their new escapes here.
Yeah, building and
In a month.
grounds, so I guess,
Some of those vehicles though tend to run lower mileage, so they can last us for a long
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
We can take a look at it along the way.
I think we need to see how this program works out,
Yep.
then we can.
Yeah, I think so too.
Anything else?
Before I sit back down, is there anything right now that you'd like me to follow up or look into further outside of the lease agreements?
No.
If anything pops up, I think you'll know how to get hold of me. So,
Or you could ask him if he's interested in 2 corner old vehicles and a Impala from juvenile detention.
wait and see how the lease agreement looks.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for your time. I have nothing further.
Thank you. Ward, you're up next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. I have 5 items, but I'll be brief. The first one before you is an agreement between the county of Grand Forks and AE2S. This agreement is entered into professional services to study and report back on our parking ramp. Recall last fall, we had some rather large concrete blocks fall into our parking lot. Luckily, no vehicles are hit, no pedestrians were hit. I had visited with, it was Chair Peach at the time, and Vice Chair Falk. They told me just to get on something. Then brought it to the commission. The commission gave me some permission to start visiting with AE2S. It would come out of whatever money it would come out of capital improvements. Well, we got an early winter. So AE2S could not perform the study because of snow and ice. So now we finally have an agreement here not to exceed 35,000, which was the parameters the commission gave me last fall. So this is the agreement between the county and AE2S to enlist their professional structural engineering services to take a look at a ramp. We found another issue in the ramp that is making this report more necessary. Not to exceed 35,000. So looking, first of all, I'll answer any questions, but looking for commission's approval on the agreement and chair's signature. Ms. Wamstead, do I need to be reined in on anything? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ford, isn't it $50,000 now instead of 35 that was approved? What is it?
It's 35,000, yes, ma'am.
Very good.
It was gonna be 50, it's now 35.
Any comments? Yes.
Approval of the contract to study the ramp.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? My only comment is we really have no other alternative.
No, that's right.
So,
You park their duck.
yeah. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Did you vote, Commissioner Peach? Might not be with us right now.
She's muted.
Oh, she's muted.
Yes, I voted aye.
Okay, thank you. Oh, it was unanimous. Okay, next, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Does that require my signature?
Yes, sir. You would require your
Actually, signature.
Yeah, I got copies from Ms. Nelson. Unless there's-
Thank you.
Okay. The next thing, at the last commission meeting, I briefly reported on COVID-19 administrative pay. And let you know that we were gonna visit with the department heads. We are still offering that. And come back to the board with a recommendation. So we did discuss it as management, as department heads, and it was unanimously agreed upon that we could end, the department heads would be okay if the board ended COVID-19 administrative pay. We don't have anyone in the penalty box. So we haven't had to utilize it, thankfully, knock on wood. So it's a commission decision, it's a policy decision. But it's the recommendation of the COVID team and department heads that you can end COVID-19 administrative pay. That means if you have COVID, you just use sick time, personal day, whatever you have available to you. Board decision.
I would make that a motion to discontinue the COVID-19 administrative pay.
We have a second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Seems like if we have to, we can always reinstitute it if something happens, so. I'm getting a nod from human resources. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. At the last commission meeting, we also discussed some remodels on 4th floor for Northeast Human Services. And whether or not the county was interested in actually procuring the contract and materials and then being reimbursed by the state. Sorry for the last minute drop on the commission, but we did receive an amendment to the lease between the state and the county, which would, where the state would reimburse the county for the materials upon completion of the work. So I visited with Mr. Gershesky and the contractor, Bosick Construction. The quote is still at $41,895. The bulletproof materials and some of the other materials are pretty pricey for the contractor, who's a smaller company. He just asked that he would invoice the county for $10,000 for the materials right away. And then he would invoice the county the remainder upon completion, and then the state will reimburse the county upon completion. And that's so what you would have, that I have from Ms. Nelson for chair's signature, is the estimate and the amendment. Ms. Wamstead, any thoughts? Did I do okay?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I would just add that I have reviewed these documents and have no legal concerns.
I have a question, Mr. Ford. We've got an agreement with the state, or they've signed off on this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all I can.
It's signed.
Pardon me?
Oh, okay. The first document was signed, Mr. Chair, but Ms. Wamstead wanted a couple changes. So we got the changes, but it's not signed, so we still need to get it signed by the state. So if the commission wishes to approve it and chair's signature, I'll just send it to Ms. Wamstead. I'll send it back to the city for their signature. There's just some state emergency because of the contractor has work starting in May, so he's hoping to get started on this right away. So.
And Mr. Chair, I would just add that the language that was added by the state. And so I wouldn't anticipate that they have any issues with it. So it's just a matter of getting them signed.
Okay. Can we have a motion then to approve the proposal in which we're gonna end up paying Basic Construction $10,000 for materials up front, which I don't have a problem with. And then what else do we need? So it's already approved this project.
You just need to sign the lease amendment between the county and the state and the estimate from Bosick Construction.
So if we could have a motion relative to Mr. Ford's.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Fourth item for your consideration, HV Sound and Light. I had erroneously sent an email to the commission last week about audio upgrades to the conference room here. If you recall, the commission asked that I look into getting some audio upgrades and using ARPA funding. This was back in October. We got that solution instead. I kind of let the whole thing fall because this was working. But it came up again in the last Public Safety and Infrastructure Committee meeting. So $36,997.10 to put in an improved audio system that would include the Pioneer Room and the Memorial Room, not just the Pioneer Room. So I was incorrect. So I don't know if that's still something the commission wants to do, wants to look into. Keep in mind that quote was from October. I'm sure it's more now. I just don't want to have HB Sound and Light go through some more work unless the county wants to pursue this. So looking for direction from the commission, if it's still a project you want to look into.
Yes.
We did something to this room, did we not, or whatever? It doesn't seem like we have the problem anymore. Where did it go?
No, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Knopf, we didn't change the audio system at all. We purchased that Zoom TV and it's able to basically pick up the microphone system. So it's been working well, which is why we didn't pursue this any further. But the Memorial Conference Room does not have. So what this essentially does is puts in an overhead amplification system. So you don't even need these. As you talk, the system picks it up. There's speakers, projects the voices, if you will. It would be the same for the Memorial Conference Room. So if you have a big conference in there, and I mean, we haven't had them in so long because of ARPA, but if you had a big conference system, you'd have an audio system to pick up voices, amplify the voices throughout the room. If you have Zoom meetings and presentations, same thing. So.
Yes.
With this system working pretty well, and I've been on Zoom sometimes too, I wonder if we shouldn't just consider this in our budget in this coming year to see what we have. More and more expensive. Everything else all the time. I'm just wondering if we need to spend this 35,000.
Well, the only thing, and I initially, when it was just for this room, I was opposed to it. But when I found out it was for both rooms, then it made more sense. And an example is we had when we worked on the contractors, Ross, were you there with that? Yeah, and we were in that room, and it was fairly difficult at times because we were spread out in the room because of COVID. For the people on the Zoom TV or whatever to hear what was being said. So, sometimes I think it actually is to assist the public in using that facility more. Maybe what we should do is hear from somebody from HB, Sound and Light, to tell us exactly what that system will do for us. And then we could make a decision. But if it would work, and I think we can consider using ARPA funds to pay for that, because that's what's causing a lot of these problems.
Would that qualify as ARPA?
Mr. Chair, member of the commission, they have relaxed the criteria for using ARPA funds, and you can use up to $10 million for any government purpose.
Oh, that's good. That's a very good deal. Yeah. I think we should pursue, describe, come in and tell us what they could do.
Yeah, maybe we could arrange that for one of the meetings at their convenience.
Yes, sir. I'll reach out.
Everybody in agreement?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for the direction. The last thing I have, at the last commission meeting, I briefed the commission on the home rule survey. And that Ms. Wamstead and I, at the direction of the commission, would visit with a few firms that work with public entities on survey. So Ms. Wamstead and I did meet with 3 firms. One of them was local. The other 2 were recommended to us by a member of the Home Rule Charter Committee. And it was our job to basically come back to the commission today. The first firm they weren't interested because of the timeline. They couldn't have the timeline. The second firm was interested. However, they're a smaller shop, so there was some concern. And essentially would have drove up some of the costs. So the second firm was looking at about 32,000 conservatively to do a home rule survey. And this, mind you, this is all the households of the county, right? And then the third group, they are proposing about 22,000 and they would be interested. So both firms could start fairly soon. They're interested. So 32,000 and 22,000. Why is there a $10,000 difference? The lower bidder is just a bigger group and they do this kind of work. So I guess it's a commission decision, policy decision. I don't know, Ms. Wamstead, if you have anything to add, but I think either firm could do the job. The last firm we visited with, they were pretty impressive. I don't know if there's anything you want to add. So kind of looking for further direction from the commission. And this was something the Home Rule Charter Commission is requesting we look into, the county look into. This would essentially go before all the households in the county, you know, where the Home Rule Charter Committee is thinking is, do the constituents support this effort and under what circumstance would they support it? So if the commission wants to continue, I can reach back out. The Donovan Group is the cheaper version. And my advice would be that whoever the group is, if you want to proceed, we schedule a Home Rule Charter Committee meeting quickly so that this group can visit with the committee and see what they're looking to capture, what their goal is. So that's where that's at, Mr. Chairman. Looking at, let me break this down. I'm sorry, 10,000 to hire the group, 8,000 roughly for printing, marketing costs, 4,000 for postal mailing costs.
I think we like the idea of getting a survey done. I mean, we're going blind if we don't have an idea of what people want, and it's a way to educate people as to what we're thinking about. And maybe we'll get an informed result back from that survey. So I think we should go ahead. I think we should take the bigger group at the lower price and get it started as soon as we can.
Any other comments?
I guess I have. And let's go back to the proofing thing, and not that that's got anything to do with it, but it's got to do with the petitions and things like that. And so we listen to the city website, to their council meetings and things like that. Of course, they now, are questioning if that petition was proper and verbiage wise, whatever. And they keep talking about because of home rule, da, 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 da. And so the home rule keeps coming up, and I'm not exactly sure what that means, other than it probably gives the government entity some extra leverage or something.
Well,
I don't know, but the thing is that what I'm thinking when I watch that is that here you have 5,000 people roughly or better that have signed petitions with the hopes that this will give our community, our citizens, an opportunity to have a vote, say. And I know everybody thinks differently about that. But they keep saying home rule. So I keep thinking in my head, here's over 5,000 people that have signed this petition. And now we're coming back with home rule. And if that doesn't go through, for whatever reason, it doesn't go through, the city says that the petitions weren't good. But because they've said home rule, kept referring to that, that's going to be a real negative for us. when we start talking about home rule, and there are people out there that are talking about counties going home rule, or you want to go home rule, you know, and I can't explain it to them.
I think the simplest thing is that the reason that they're able to sign petitions is because of home rule, because home rule allows for referendum. And the same with the county's proposed home rule would allow for referendum. Had we sponsored the food bank project, it would not have come up for a vote because there's no referendum in our county, but home rule does apply for it. So it's actually good for those people that home rule is in effect. Now, as far as the petitions, you know, it's the same thing that the county does on any of our petitions when we run for election as far as signatures, because and you've seen them also when you get them, somebody from East Grand Forks signs, or somebody from Fargo, or whatever happens to sign, or I had one the other day, I had a couple of people sign twice, and it happens. So I think that's what, as far as the signatures are being checked, I can't speak for the county or for the city, but those are some of the problems on signatures on petitions. I think the state had the same problem. What was the one petition for, they didn't get enough signatures because there were too many from, maybe too many from out of state. But
where I was going with that is because the public's listening, they're watching. We've got 5,000 plus people that signed this petition, and the home rule thing keeps coming up. And in there, you know, if it goes down where they can't, if the city's not going to accept those, you're probably going to have 5,300 people that have already signed those petitions that are going to vote no against home rule for us.
well, then they're just misinformed because they don't understand. They could not have had an opportunity to sign the petitions. You know, certainly with the county, you would not have that opportunity unless there was home rule. You wouldn't have referendum, and that's applied for. So, Mr.
Yeah, if for some reason those petitions are invalidated, I assume it better be for a good reason, that people absolutely didn't have the right to sign. I don't think anyone in the city, isn't the city who's validating those petitions? They're not gonna invalidate it just for a political purpose. They're gonna, their jobs are to validate signatures or otherwise.
But they're looking at the verbiage of the petition, and they're looking at a bunch of things other than just signatures like we look at with our petitions. Generally, we look at the names, the signatures, that sort of thing. But this is, whatever reason, because of the home rule, and again, I know nothing about any of this, but they keep talking about home rule, and I should research it further about, but it seems like that's going to be the barrier, because they're looking at the verbiage, they're looking at the attorney has looked at it prior to, and all this other stuff. And so I'm just afraid if that goes down, we don't stand a chance, no matter how much the good education that we do or the good reason that we have.
If people are misinformed, we really can't do a lot about it. I mean, we just have to try to educate the population for our voters and try not to get involved in the city business. But I think if we educate them that home rule would allow for them to bring a petition on something that, you know, a project that we might like that's controversial, then I would assume they would like that. Commissioner Peach, are you? I can't hear you. Commissioner Peach, we can't hear you right now.
Okay, is this better?
No, not better.
Okay, I would like to better.
Are you still there, Cynthia?
Yes,
We just can't hear you right now.
I am. Okay.
Any other comments? We'll work on it, Commissioner Peach.
Thank you.
She's on Bluetooth or speakerphone or something. Yeah.
It's up as loud as it will go.
Can you try it now, Cynthia?
Yeah,
That's better.
I would like
It's the connection.
It's a connection.
Yeah, you keep, you say the first couple of words we can hear and then you fade out completely.
okay.
Okay. Any other comments or ideas, motions, whatever?
Well, since I commented, I'll make the motion, we go ahead with the survey. I would like to know what the people in the county think about it. And actually, I agree with Chairman Falk that the right to petition our actions puts us on the spot and makes sure we, you know, do what the kind of people in the county want anyway. So it's a selling point for home rule for the people in the county, in my view.
And hopefully the city will correct this information, but that, I don't want to get
That's
involved.
another aspect of it.
Yeah,
I
they're,
don't think it's misinformation. Are you talking about the stuff I was talking about? It isn't
Right, right.
misinformation.
well, the referendum is if they think that.
If they think it's a bad thing.
No.
Yeah,
If they think home rule is a bad thing because the petitions didn't go through, without home rule, they wouldn't be able to even try.
they couldn't have signed the petitions, it wouldn't have been possible, so.
So I don't know what they wrote on.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Ross.
No, from
Inget,
I'll second
I'm
it.
confused.
Look like whatever.
Who's on second?
Yeah, we have a second from Commissioner Ross. Are there any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Lori, I'm gonna oppose just because I have a hard time spending $35,000 or something. $22,000 for, I'd like to have seen that this been put on hold until we could have gotten information, what I was trying to tell you to explain that, but whatever.
Okay, Commissioner Peach, did you vote?
Yes, I did.
Could you just say you voted yes?
Yes.
Thank you. It's tough in here today. Appreciate it. Okay, Mr. Ford, anything else?
Mr. Chair, Ms. Wamstead and I will reach out to the Donovan Group to get some paperwork in order. I'll work with you too, sir. I think we should get a home rule charter committee meeting on the books to have the Donovan Group visit with them. So follow up.
All right, let Commissioner Ross and I know and we'll work it out.
Yes, sir. That's all I have.
State's attorney. Excellent. Committee reports. Commissioner Knopf.
All I have is that this week, is it today? Today is National Library Day. I sit on the library board. I'm just sharing that with you, but it also is National Library Week 4/3 through the rest of the week. And so they've got all kinds of fun things going on. So.
And I was there today.
You were there today? Woo-hoo. Thank you. What fun things did you do?
I got my grandkids, we went for reading at 10 o'clock.
Okay, great. So.
Commissioner Ringen.
A couple of Zoom meetings and work meeting this morning, but nothing unusual, nothing to report really.
Okay.
We have a new director with the MPO. It is Stephanie Halford. She worked for the city of Grand Forks, but now she's the new director for the MPO. And we had a special meeting to approve that appointment just the other day. So it's on board. The other thing that I had was Kari has given over her old expedition to juvenile detention. They are now in possession of it. So I have the old Impala that they had and the two corner vehicles that are sitting at the coroner's office. All three of them are together. And they are in Sheriff Snyder's hands for auction, whatever he's gonna do with them. So
With two dead batteries.
I bet they're on the coroner's vehicles.
Mr. Peach, I hope you don't have anything because we'll probably not be able to hear you.
Nothing.
Thank you. I had a couple of meetings that weren't worth bringing up here today. Oh yeah, I want to thank Commissioner Knopf and Commissioner Peach because they're volunteered, I think, by Human Resources to sit on the IT.
I won't have it been approached, so.
Yeah.
You didn't get there yet.
You haven't got there, well, you're going to be approached, so we thank you for your time.
Okay.
Sorry. See, we feel like broke the bad news for you.
Thanks.
For a hiring committee for the IT director. So other than that, I have nothing and new business. We don't have any correspondence is there. So we need an adjournment.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? Second to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much, everyone. Yeah.
Here rather than.
Oh, yeah, true.
It's quite the same. Quite the same.
Yeah. Terry Hayden.
One that you said.
Yeah. Professor and in farmland.
That's pretty amazing.